adulters, and I welcome you to my TED Talk. I'll be discussing one of the models Darwin used for his famous book on the origins of species. Many of you know plenty about the Galapagos finches or even the tortoises Darwin studied during his voyage and mentioned in his book. However, Darwin's studies on fancy pigeons are sometimes overlooked, even though a good portion of Darwin's argument over evolution does describe his findings on these fancy pigeons. His fancy pigeons were actually the first example that he used in the first chapter of his book, The Origins of Species. Darwin had kept many different breeds of pigeons that he could purchase or obtain. Darwin had noticed that many of these breeds of pigeons varied in color, number of their feathers, the skin around their eyes and between their toes, and the relative lengths of their tail, wings, feet, and legs. On top of all these varieties, the different breeds also varied in egg size, shape, the fashion of flight, and even some varied in voices and deposition. Although, despite all these differences, Darwin noticed that these fancy pigeons all do share similar body structures. Darwin did in fact try crossbreeding these diverse breeds of pigeons and found out the hybrids actually were perfectly fertile. This information allowed Darwin to conclude that these fancy pigeons had all descended from one parent species, specifically the Columbia levi, which is more commonly known as the rock dove or the common pigeon. This is due to the fact that the offspring of two distinct breeds are often going to be sterile, which debunks the other fellow pigeon breeders' beliefs that each breed of these fancy pigeons came from different multiple parent species. In conclusion, Darwin discovered that even two completely different looking organisms can still be related due to evolution, and the fancy pigeons' cases due to the selective breeding. In the end, Darwin's words it best. We cannot suppose that these breeds were suddenly produced as perfect as useful as we see them now. The key is the man's power of accumulation selection. Nature gives successful varieties, man adds them up to a certain direction that's useful to him. Thank you for listening to my TED Talk.